Good morning, everybody. This is Chef Matt here. Just wanted to give you guys a quick recap on some stuff that we talked about last class as pertaining to our knife skills. All right. Very first today, I wanted to introduce the tool that we're going to be using the most often in the kitchen, the chef knife or the French knife. We're going to get a chance to talk a little bit about each kind of knife and develop skills in each of kind of those knives. It's like the fillet knife, the paring knife, cleavers, and other tools that we're going to be using in our kitchen. This one we're going to be using the most often. And first and foremost, I want to be able to cover the pieces of the knife itself so that we can all be speaking the same language. All right. Very first off, all the way at the end of my French knife here, you'll find the tip. Tips are very fragile, so you want to make sure that you take the utmost care not to accidentally touch it over your cutting board, right? Pierce anything, right? Or go side to side in any motion with that tip, right? Or else it can actually risk breaking off, causing a physical food hazard, right? And the rest of the knife here, following the sharp blade, all the way across here, you'll find the blade, the cutting surface of the knife, all right? Always keep this section facing away from your hand, such as when you are clearing off vegetables and produce from the sides of your blade, making sure you have this section up against your hand. This section across the back, we will call the spine of the knife. The spine is the non-cutting surface and the section you will interact with most when you are using the correct grip on the knife, right? Right where the tip goes to the blade, you'll find the end being the heel. The heel of the knife is just this section right here. Still sharp, the same way of the tip. We're going to be using that to kind of maneuver ourselves away. The heel is basically where our fingers are going to be resting on the correct grip of the knife, right? Over to the section of the handle itself, having rivets going straight through it, and the actual blade of the knife travels through the handle all the way to the end. Add both weight and balance to the knife that I'm using today, all right? When we grip for our knife skills, we're going to be using a very special grip. Some people at home may just hold the grip simply like this, but when you add pressure, that might cause your knife to slip side to side, all right? In our kitchens, we're going to be using a grip where we use our thumb and our pointer finger to press onto the blade and then to wrap the rest of our hand firmly around that knife so that we get a really good grip side to side, and it gives us lots of stability, all right? Now, when we're using the knife itself, it's very important, right? This knife is designed to rock and chop, all right? Force headed straight down on a knife will cut, but it also crush the vegetables that you're cutting. So keeping an extremely sharp knife across the blade is going to make it so that the knife is doing most of the work as we cut. So while we go down through our vegetables, we're also going to be traveling across the surface of those vegetables to make sure that we're having the knife do the work, not our hands. All right? So let's touch on some station setup as I've got it today. Today we're going to be cutting some Yukon Gold potatoes into 3 basic knife cuts. All right, on my station I have what I'm doing it with, and where it's going. This way I never have to move my feet when I start a project. If you're in the kitchen and you're, say, cutting an entire case of onions, you'll have a case of onions, something to cut that case of onions with, and then a bin for the finished product so that you never have to waste time moving back and forth. We always remain efficient. And as such, every time we are at rest at our cutting board, our knife is always going to stay at 12 o'clock with the blade facing away from us and the handle towards our cutting hand. If you're left-handed, it sits the other way on our cutting board. Something I'm also always going to carry on my station is a sanitizer bucket. This sanitizer bucket can be filled in the last prep sink, the last dish sink over by the 3-bay area. You guys will find it labeled sanitizer that actually has a section only says sanitizing solution only, so nothing will get stored in this bucket. All right, it's full halfway up with sanitizer and of course contains a sanitizer rag. This will be stored below my station, and anytime I need to clean up in between projects, I can simply bring that towel out and gently clean up as I go. Cleaning as I go is going to both keep us bacteria free and working efficiently. All right, so let's get right into knife cuts. When we start on with our basic knife cuts today, we're going to be talking about how to dice a potato, all right? As we said in class, when you're dicing a potato, you're going to want to make sure that anytime you're having a round surface that you cut a flat side first, all right? Very quickly, cut yourself a flat side so your potato does not move, does not roll about the cutting board, right? It provides a safe surface for you to work in. Your waste can go directly into the bin where your raw product came from, all right? On the grip of your knife, yes, we already talked about how to pinch, wrap around, and be firm. All right, now let's talk about our left hand. We're gonna use what's called the claw grip. The claw grip means all my fingertips are going to be touching the ingredient as I manipulate it across my cutting board. My claw grip is done with 4 lead fingers, and my thumb is going to be tucked behind my fingers to make me a nice and stable grip. Be sure not to put the pads of your fingers or rest your wrist down onto your cutting board, right? That can cause problems like slippage, right? And crossing over where your thumb may lead in front of your forefingers and cause you to cut, all right? So with a claw grip on my potato and my knife set, I'm gonna first cut a flat side so that I can get flat knife cuts out of a round potato. I now have 2 corners, right, to get started. So this will be my lead edge, or what we call my cut edge, all right? Every dice is a set size, right? If you reference the slides that I attached to this assignment today, you guys will see a large dice, a medium dice, and a small dice. Very first dice we're gonna do is called a large dice. Large dices are always the same, 3/4 of an inch on all sides for a 6-sided object. We're always going to do this in a 3-step process. All right, we're going to cut a plank first, measuring 3/4 of an inch from my cut side, leading with the tip of my knife headed straight down to tip, and then following with the back of my knife. This is now a plank with a lead cut surface being the bottom of my potato. From my cut surface and my plank stage, we're going to get into our baton stage, measuring 3/4 of an inch from my cut surface and cutting down into 3/4 of an inch batons and discarding any wonky pieces, all right? From here, you should be able to see a square shape form in what we call the baton stage, step 2, all right? For my last step, I'm going to do the dice itself, all right? True up the edges, as you see, these ugly bits here. Give those a nice cut straight across, so you're starting on a clean surface. From this cut edge, I'll measure for the last time 3/4 of an inch across, and we'll start our dicing stage. 3/4 of an inch on all sides, and leading up to the trim on the opposite end. And here we have 3-step process. We're gonna do that same process, but for a medium dice, this time a 1/2 inch on all sides. First goes the plank, a 1/2 inch inside from my plank, 1/2 inch in from my 1/2 inch batons, truing up my edges of those batons to get my dicing stage. Line them all up as you're comfortable. You can start with one, or you can do all 3 together. Line them up nicely, and go a 1/2 inch in from your cut side to get those beautiful knife cuts. Again, take your trim and set it aside. Today we're going for accuracy. Trim will be used for things like soup, stocks, and sauces, so not to worry about excess waste. Here we have our medium dice. All right, last but certainly not least, we'll start with our small dice. Now you can see, I'm starting to run out of real estate for my left hand on my potato. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it flat across, I'm going to rotate it. And what that's going to do is allow me to have a more stable surface to cut my smaller pieces on. I'm going to start with my small dice, which is 1/4 of an inch on all sides. All right, 1/4 of an inch plank, measure 1/4 of an inch in from your cut surface, and cut yourself a few planks. When you're getting started, this might take a little bit of practice to get it even from one side to the other, as the cut is so small. Here I have my 1/4 inch planks. Step 2 being my batons. I'll take my nicest planks, nice and even across the edge here, and I'm going to measure in 1/4 inch from my cut surface, being that flat side. And here we have our 1/4 inch batons. What you're going to do is take all these like matchsticks, line them up nicely, and cut a square edge so that you can start these nice even dices. Look down the edge. If you're looking at rectangles, you're going to want to adjust these a little bit. Line them up true to your knife, measure 1/4 inch in from that side, start to rock and chop through your vegetables to find those beautiful dices. Again, when you get to the end, you're going to wind up with some little pieces. Don't be afraid to pick through your vegetables, only leaving these really appealing knife cuts behind. And here we have a small dice. Right. Last but not least, we're going to do a knife cut called the julienne cut. A julienne cut is 1/8 of an inch on all sides and 2 inches long, much like a matchstick would be in a matchbook. For this, we're going to start by cutting a small plank itself, 1/8 of an inch thick. It's truly quite small. Take your time with this and use the action of your blade to slice through your potato. Get these beautiful, nice, skinny strips straight across. When cutting a julienne, at this time for our planks, we're going to cut the julienne size. It should be 2 inches long as the final cut. So we're going to take the ugly sides and trim these away until we have some really nice, appealing looking planks with a good square cut side. At this time, I'll take my planks and I'll line them up next to one another so that the cut sides line up. To this, we'll add 1/8 of an inch cut from the cut side, rocking and chopping through my vegetable, being sure to stay true from one end to the other so that those lines are nice, straight, and parallel. And from here, we'll render our julienne cut, or our matchstick cut. Excellent.